Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to a new episode of Words of Wellness. I'm your host, Yassir Al-Manawi, a clinical therapist. Today we're going to be talking about human characters as well, and we're going to be talking about arrogance and false self and ego, false ego. Why are we talking about this? We're talking about these issues because in my belief and in my experience, it's one of the worst issues that could actually attack somebody is to become arrogant or have an inflated ego. So let's see, we have some hadith. We're going to read it and then we're going to get back to our discussion. Hadith and Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, your most ardent enemy is your false self, resides within your body, which resides within your body. Your most ardent self is your false self, which resides within your body. Does that mean I have two selves? No. It means that each human being have a self-protection. We talked before about the inner feelings and the outside feelings or the outside behavior. The inner feelings is what we have, and along with it, we have our fears. Nobody wants to give in to his or her own fears. So what do? They want to run away from it. In addition to that, they don't only want to run away from it, but they actually want to cover it from other people too. Running away from it, meaning that I cover it from myself. And at the same time, I want to cover it from other people. Who of us wants other people to know that we're not successful enough? Nobody. Who of us want other people to know that we are very emotional or we're sad or we get hurt easily? Nobody. Everybody wants to be strong. Everybody wants to have his or her own feelings intact together. And we teach that in our society. Everywhere. In every society. We teach that. You usually see any father or any mother when a child is 5 or 6 or 7, a boy, and they're crying. What do the parents usually do? Don't cry. Don't show your feelings. They don't say don't show your feelings, but they say don't cry, which implies what? Don't show your feelings. You're going to be a man. A man doesn't cry. And you know what? They teach girls the same thing, not to cry, to control their feelings. So what happens as a result of that? Feelings get frozen inside because it's taught by the society is to get rid of the feelings altogether. So it's actually something that's God's given to us as human beings. And we want to get away from it. Something like crying. A lot of times when somebody comes to the clinic for treatment and they tell me, well, I forgot how to cry. I don't cry anymore. Why? My reply to that is, what's the difference between crying and eating? This is something that God gave you, and being hungry is something that God gave you. So this has a use and this has a use. This has a specific time and this has specific time. So why don't you use what God has given you, which is actually healthy, physically and emotionally and mentally. So not only emotionally and mentally, but physically as well. And that's what I tell everybody. And you know what? As soon as they hear that, they start after 2 or 3 sessions getting back into crying. Why? Because it's human nature. So let's see. We're going to go back into the arrogance. What is the arrogance? Arrogance is the balloon outside. I call it the balloon. The balloon that's inflated and that is covering somebody who's very sensitive inside. It's covering somebody who is very fragile inside. And they put this balloon. You find their faces like this, and you find them walking around, and they're trying to be very successful. They're trying to be very, right in everything. I'm not saying not to be successful. Be successful, but be yourself. You don't have to pretend to be something else that you're not, because that way you actually deviate from your own reality. And that's where the problem starts. When you deviate from your own reality, then you have what we call something inside and something outside, and those are the two selves. It's actually one self. If you have somebody who's arrogant, you find him very loud, you find him very argumentative, you find him very controlling to other people. What does that mean? My first question to people like this is, what are you covering inside? Why don't you just be yourself? And the first thing that we need to teach our children is what? Being loud is not the answer. Being loud is trying to hide what you have inside. So I'd rather if you talk about your feelings, I'd rather if you teach your children talk about their feelings, so they will be connected with themselves and they will not have shame of themselves. Let's see, shame also comes from something else. If parents, and this happens a lot, and I see it a lot, would tell their children, well, the kid will come in running, having like 83% in their monthly report. And then the parents would tell them, what? You could have done better than that. That's not good enough. And then they go back and they come the next month with 90%. Well, you could have done better than that. That's not good enough. What are you actually telling your child? You're telling him, you're implying that he's not good enough. You're implying that your relationship with him, you already preset the directions, which is, do this, you'll get that. Do this, you'll get that. It shouldn't be. This is not the way a relationship, a father and child or a mother and child relationship should be. It should be a love relationship. Studying will happen. It's not going to happen. It will happen. But take care of the emotional piece first, and then the studying will happen after that. Child like that, what we were just talking about, what happens to him? He goes out, he doesn't feel loved, he doesn't feel that he's successful. He might know that he's successful in his head, but deep inside, he doesn't feel it. So what happens? You find him, he goes to college, and then they have a project, and they never finish a project. They start one project, and they leave it. Second project, and they leave it. Third project, and they leave it. And then what happens? They go to college, they don't want to do it. This is the self-fulfilling prophecy that we're talking about. And these are the people, usually, that do what? Become arrogant. Why? Because they want to hide these inner feelings, not only from other people, but from themselves. When they hide these feelings, they get temporary relief. It's not a constant relief. It's a temporary relief. Until when? Until their emotional unbalance become louder and louder and louder. And that's what we need to take a look at. Deflate the balloon and become yourself and build on it. Build on it. That's the trust that you have in yourself. And the more you build on it, the more you're going to feel self-satisfied. With these words, I'll leave you, and we'll meet again in a different episode of Words of Wellness. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.